Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rewiński. As Ukraine's future hangs in the balance, crucial events are taking place across Europe and beyond, which may determine the course of the conflict. The European Union has now agreed to grant a powerful injection of cash to Kiev without tapping Russia's frozen assets. Trump's administration maintains pressure on all stakeholders to get the peace deal done as soon as possible. And against this background, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is meeting his Polish counterpart Karol Nawrocki in Warsaw today. But can the mutual friendship between the two countries be reignited after it had recently lost momentum? Joining us here today is Tomasz Zając, analyst at the Polish Institute of International Affairs. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So what should we expect from President Zelenskyy's visit?
I think not a lot of surprises, to be perfectly honest. I think, Poland was and is at the forefront of pro-Ukrainian policy in the European Union. I think President Zelenskyy was wants just to reaffirm actually, our stance and just to underline that we're working, head to head for the Ukraine. I think, especially taking into account the yesterday's summit, also that will be important. Also to send a strong message that although it was complicated, but still the outcome of the summit is pretty positive, I think, and I guess President Zelenskyy will like to underline this as well.
But would you say that the relationship between Poland and Ukraine is on cool down, and it has been recently? And if so, what are the reasons for this state of affairs?
So I don't think that they cool down. Obviously, there are different interests sometimes at play. We have two different political camps. One as the president, the other as the government. But I think that still the strategic interest of Poland, and also just the right thing to do, is to support Ukraine, and this is what we're doing. And actually, in this regard, I think there are not that many differences. Obviously, some tactics regarding this issue might differ, but beside that, I think we're still supporting Ukraine. We're doing everything we can to just push this idea that fighting for Ukraine is fighting for whole Europe in the EU.
Now, there are two schools of thought, so to say. Let's look at the two extremes. Some people say Ukraine is bleeding out in this fight. We simply need to help them whatever they do, demand nothing. Now, the other side, the other extreme, is Ukraine is not being grateful enough. Poland has been helping them so much, and yet they have been turning their attention towards other countries, forgetting about us. Do you think it's possible to strike the right balance between the two? And do you think that Poland's President Karol Nawrocki can strike that balance?
I mean, yeah, of course. I think it's a normal thing, actually, that, especially it's third year of the war. And obviously, after, the first kind of upheaval, both social, and political in Poland, we are two different countries. We have different interests sometimes. We have, some common values. We have some common interests as well. And it's absolutely normal, actually, to have those discussions and to try, to find some kind of compromise in this regard. So I'm not a specialist on the Ukrainian politics, so I don't feel suited actually to assess this. But from my perspective, it's perfectly normal, and of course that there's this need to find a balance between a big idea which is supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russia, which is absolutely existential for Europe and for Poland, and of different interests, economical, also political, etc.
Do you think enough is being done to counter Russian propaganda, which is aimed at sowing distrust between Poles and Ukrainians? It has unfortunately been the case recently that propaganda messaging from the Kremlin has been seeping into the political debate. People have been more and more skeptical of helping Ukraine. Do you think that this trend can be changed?
I think that definitely we should do the best we can to fight this trend. I think especially in Poland, it's not that easy to be pro-Russian, but it's easier actually to be, anti-Ukraine. And this is actually what is happening across Europe as well. I think there is this awareness among European societies and also European political class that that being pro-Russian is something, completely off the table right now, that this is against our core interests. But to what you described as, sowing this distrust towards Ukraine, this actually has better traction, I think, among European societies and in Poland as well. So absolutely, I think we should do a lot. Actually, European Union and Poland as well is doing quite a lot. I think in terms of fighting disinformation. There are a lot of people working on that. There are special departments in European Commission, in Polish ministries, etc. It's not actually easy to fight disinformation because the paradox, I think, is that it's easier actually to plant a false idea, some false narrative, and it's much more difficult actually to find to fight it in a way that actually what would be needed is a counter narrative that we will be promoting among our societies, and this is ethically problematic to also to have some kind of I'm not talking about fake news, right? But like those big campaigns with narratives that are easy to remember, that has good tractions among societies. So it's not easy. Again, I want to stress this because the forces here are asymmetrical. Russia very often chooses the time, the place, and the tools that it's using against our societies, and we have to respond to those attacks. So it's very difficult.
Now, in the meantime, the European Union has agreed to help Ukraine respond to very tangible, physical, military attacks which are taking place on a daily basis. 90 billion in borrowed money, but the money will not be coming from frozen Russian assets. This will be borrowing against the EU budget. Do you think we're out of the woods, so to say, when it comes to financing Ukraine? And what is going to happen to the frozen Russian assets now?
So the outcome of the summit is, in my opinion, positive, but to be perfectly honest, pretty disappointing in this regard. So using Russian frozen assets actually would be a good sign of what happens to the aggressor, of the risk that you can encounter if you invade just another country. And actually, it's a good thing that European member states they have this deal about the common borrowing and sending money to Ukraine, because it's also absolutely crucial. And without the foreign aid, from what I know, it's about like half of the budget they're disposing. So it's absolutely crucial for the surviving of this state. So this is very good. But the fact that Belgium, because it was mostly Belgium that was against using the frozen assets, because most of the assets are in the institution called Euroclear. It's a financial institution based in Belgium. This I find disappointing because European Commission, I think, really did its job and came up with really good answers to the doubts that the Belgians had regarding the risks that they may encounter. Meaning that there was guarantees from the member states proportionate to their GDP. There were really a lot of in this proposal by the European Commission on the reparation loan. There was a lot of the ideas that actually wanted to answer the Belgian doubts, but it didn't help, and the Belgian Prime Minister was adamant. And again, I think it's not a good thing, but maybe, and answering your question, this is true that we're running out of ideas how to finance Ukraine. European societies are also spending more and more, especially on defense. So it's not easy actually to find new source of money. But maybe a good thing here is that actually the European leaders, they decided that even though they didn't use the frozen asset this time, maybe in future, because $90 billion, it's I think around 2 years or 3 years of it will serve Ukraine for 2-3 years. But after that, maybe with some better political configuration in Belgium, or another political situation in Europe as such, maybe the momentum will be this time for using those assets and not against, like it happened this time.
And now, a final quick question. 3 countries have actually apparently opted out from financing the loan for Ukraine. Can you give us a quick comment on that?
This is not surprising, because it was Hungary, Slovakia, and Czechia. Those are 3 countries that their approach towards Russia is, in the case of Hungary, it's just pro-Russia, just like being blunt, being honest. In case of Slovakia, it's not the same level of pro-Russianness, let's say, as Hungary, but it's also has its doubts regarding supporting Ukraine. And Czechia, I would rate in this case as maybe the least pro-Russian, but still, having some doubts regarding spending their own money to help Ukraine. And on one hand, it's a bad news, because we try to portray ourselves as a unified organization, EU, that we do this unanimously, that this is our new mainstream, that we are very resolved in supporting Ukraine. And the fact that those 3 countries have this opt-outs from this loan actually goes against this unity we try so hard to have. But on the other hand, again, I think it's not surprising. It's pretty obvious that those countries, they're not very keen actually to support Ukraine with their money. So I think, of course, it would have been really, really good if we could have this unanimous support to those ideas. But those 3 countries actually, it's just not pretending that we're unanimous, because unfortunately in this regard it's a new mainstream, but we're not unanimous on that on that matter. So that's that. Yes.
Tomasz Zając was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.